here we are talking politics with the great Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. His latest book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. David Webb, famous star of TV and radio, also a Fox News contributor and a longtime friend. Fellas, I'll tell you, progressively worse. I don't know if you heard my opening. I got a bunch of things for you, two smart fellas, but gets under my skin what Barack Obama did. I don't know where he was, at Pittsburgh or someplace, using the race card, okay? So the brothers, as he put it, the brothers should have more energy to turn out for Kamala Harris. Why? Because they're black and she's black, okay? Not the content of your character, okay? Not the economy, take-home pay, immigration, safety, crime, etc. Here's Obama at his worst with this race card. And Dave Webb, I'm going to have you lead off. I'll tell our listeners, David Webb, who's a longtime dear friend of mine, is an African-American. I mean, David, to me, this is just the lowest form of politics. The lowest form of politics. What you thinking?
You know, Larry, I get so angry at this. And the reason I get angry is because we've gone from the Democrats who had the soft bigotry of low expectations for blacks, in other words, do what we tell you, to the Democrats and their liberalism on steroids that has literally no expectations. This is a hard bigotry that if you're a black man or woman in America, you are expected to do what their Democrat liberalism tells you to do, regardless of your needs, your wants, your desires as an American, and regardless of the outcomes. I watched a video yesterday that was released as it was happening from Chicago. And in the video, the reports coming in on the police scanner said it about 100 persons. It was hard to get a clear number. Raiding a train car, a number of train cars. And when I looked at the video and talked to some sources, they were all apparently, I'll say that, or allegedly black young men and possibly some young women in there. Now, why isn't Obama as concerned about their situation and how they got to that position? I'll tell you, because liberalism gives people little or no future, regardless of color of skin for that matter. But here we have seen an epidemic in the community, and all they care about is that those young people, if they're over 18 years old, go to the voting booth, pull the lever, push the button for a D in whatever form, and end up with an Obama, a Kamala Harris, or a Brandon Johnson. And how does any American stomach that?
Boy, that's great. Well said. Well said. Where did David Webb, where did Obama, where was he speaking?
He was in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, that's what I thought.
I believe.
Yeah.
And, and realize this is a guy who has used color effectively in politics. He has white Kansas grandparents, or had. They've passed on. He went to Philadelphia during his campaign and threw them under the bus to make the play with Jim Clyburn for the black vote. They abused the black farmers in America with the Pigford case. You know what Andrew Breitbart and I did to fight for the black farmers on that. I mean, these are people who care nothing. He comes from Martha's Vineyard, from his mansion on high, and comes to tell you it's time for you to do what I need you to do, and then goes back to his mansion, while those people in Chicago or anywhere in this country, maybe in Colorado, regardless, they just want a chance at life. They're not even given the opportunity to see that it exists.
You know, it's I'm coming to Joe in just a second, but he's got a big mansion in Washington, D.C., arguably the best neighborhood, Calorama. The saintly wife and I lived right near him when we were in government for Mr. Trump. Joe Concha, I mean, I think one of the issues here is that Trump has effectively been wooing young black males, and as this NAACP poll shows, he may get 25% of young black males in their 20s and 30s. That's been a target for Susie Wiles and La Savita. I mean, that's what Obama's worried about. In fact, generally speaking, it looks like Kamala Harris is fading downward. So, Joe Concha, what do you think about this racial politics?
It shows that Barack Obama sees the same internal polls that Kamala Harris's campaign is seeing, Larry and David. And think about that. Donald Trump even gets 20% of the black vote, 18% of the black vote. That still doubles what any Republican has ever gotten since 1972, right? So if you could double that number in places like Atlanta, that means you win Georgia. You double that number in Philadelphia, that means you win Pennsylvania. You double that number in Detroit, that means you easily win Michigan. You win those states, you win the election. So that's what Obama is saying here. But, Donald Trump is winning the culture war right now from a media perspective, right? If you got Obama, him out there, who is Barack Obama? To David's point, he's an elitist. He has a mansion in Martha's Vineyard, the guy who screamed about climate change for 8 years, and he buys a place on the water, which I'm told is not safe, and that place deserves its own zip code. It's so big, right? So Obama's an elitist, and think about the places she went to on the so-called media blitz last week. First, she's with Howard Stern, elitist, Stephen Colbert, elitist, The View, elitist. How does that get her any votes from the people in those states that I just mentioned? The answer is that it doesn't. And when you have Barack Obama now speaking down to black voters saying, hey, don't worry about the fact that you have less money in your bank account now, that you don't feel safe in your communities, that immigration, illegal immigration is overrunning your communities where social services are being cut. Do your duty, get in line, and vote for the black woman because, well, she's the same color as you. I think that was Obama at his worst, and it's going to only repel voters instead of bring them in, Larry.
Boy, you and I totally agree on this. You used, I think your phrase was Obama looking down. The one I used was condescending, but that's he's not part of the brothers anyway. Okay, he's long past part of the brothers, living this elite life as we discussed. All right, let's have some fun. David Webb, try you first. The CBS catastrophe with Kamala Harris, utter catastrophe. Two different cuts. One was a word salad. The second one was a fairly concise anti-Israel statement. All right, now what happens here? They still haven't released the raw transcript, which they should, for heaven's sakes. And it seems like the corporate people, the top rungs of CBS, are beating up on the reporter who was just asking good questions. He said, well, what do you do? Bibi Netanyahu is not listening to you, and she had no answer to that, and they're pounding him. And David Webb, this is a new low in journalism, it seems to me.
Well, it's beyond the new low in journalism. Excuse me, Larry. It's beyond the new low in journalism. It's deliberate action to cover up. These are the same people who helped cover up Joe Biden's addled existence as the still president of the United States. And now they lie outright to the American people. Joe and I were on the same show, the Big Weekend Show, a week ago. And Joe, I think you'll remember when Tammy Bruce says, someone who comes from the liberal camp at one time, who says, they know they're lying. They know they're lying to you, and they just need enough people to take it further to believe the lie or not pay attention to the lie. So they need either your complicity or your stupidity as a potential voter. And, they say they have this internal debate about whether to release a transcript or not, or whether 60 Minutes has done that before or not. Well, they once released a transcript of an interview with a former Fed chair, I believe. So why not release this transcript?
That was Janet Yellen, if I'm not mistaken. She was the Fed chair, and they did. And also, I can't remember the name, but the woman that worked at Fox and then moved to CBS and Herridge, Catherine Herridge. Yeah. She said, she's out of CBS now. They pushed her out because she was, I guess, slightly right of center. Anyway, she said raw transcripts or raw tapes have been released in the past. So, Joe Concha, you're a media expert. That's no big deal. What they're doing is they're hiding. They're covering up what they've done. They fiddled with the interview.
Hey, Larry, Joe, if I could, before you go, I just want to make sure their listeners, Larry's listeners, have it right. I have it here. Catherine Herridge, on February 1, 2024, 60 Minutes, Scott Pelley interviewed Fed Chair Jerome Powell in the boardroom in the Federal Reserve, and they released the transcripts fully.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I'll do you one better, guys. Catherine Herridge herself interviewed Donald Trump on CBS in 2020. They released the full video. They released the full transcript without even being asked, because that's what you're supposed to do. And when you got CBSNews.com, that is infinite space. You could put the entire interview up there. You don't have to talk about time restraints or anything else like that. They won't do it. They scream about transparency, and then they are the least transparent people out there. We have reached out for comment, Fox News has, to say, why aren't you guys releasing the full transcript and the full interview? They won't respond to requests for comment because they know they got caught here. And look, think about CBS over the last month, by the way. They also did that vice presidential debate. They tried to fact-check J.D. Vance, who was far smarter than those two moderators. And when he fact-checked them back and was right about what he was saying, they muted his mic. They fact-checked J.D. Vance 3 times during that debate and 0 times to Tim Walz, who gave ample opportunities to do so. And 60 Minutes has done this before, by the way. You remember the 2004 election? George W. Bush, Dan Rather used documents that were fake but accurate. Like, literally, he admitted it.
I forgot about
to change that election. Yeah, that was October 30th that 60-minute segment went, and that was a very close race. Remember, if Bush lost Ohio, he was losing that race. So they tried to affect that election as well. So they have a history of this, and it's not surprising, quite frankly.
Joe, just give me real quick 30 seconds. What's CBS's motive? Why had they done this, in your judgment?
Get Kamala Harris elected, defeat Donald Trump. I'll do it in 10 seconds for you. That's it. It's activism. It's not journalism, Larry. David.
That's why you're a pro. You got to sound. All right. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. His book is Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. And David Webb, Fox News contributor, Sirius XM talk show host. I'm Kudlow. We'll be back with these two pros in just a moment.
Larry Kudlow. From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking politics with two of the best. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. His book is Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. And David Webb, Fox News contributor and Sirius XM talk show host. Gentlemen, welcome back. David Webb, start with you. Donald Trump using his time. Time is money. These campaigns, particularly as they draw down, time is money. So he's going to speak Madison Square Garden in New York. Becomes a national speech. He's speaking in Colorado, New Jersey, Virginia, Minnesota, New Mexico, and California, Southern California. He's either already there or going to them. They've changed the schedule. They leaked it out. It sounds to me, two things. You're not going to win New York and California, but there's a bunch of congressmen that would help if he can cut the margin down. But these other places, the one I love is Virginia and New Jersey, because I think he's going to win both those cases. But he's broadening. He's spreading his wings, David. It's an interesting thing. It's a clear strategy. What do you make of it?
I think it's part of a very smart appeal to the American people. You know, we talk about him and the draw for black voters, but look at where Donald Trump is going. When he goes to Aurora, Colorado, he addresses the concerns that Americans, not just in Aurora, have when it comes to Tren de Aragua and other gangs and transnational criminal gangs coming into the U.S. When he goes to Nevada, another bastion of liberalism, it's another place. When he goes to Coachella, he's appealing to people on the West Coast. When he goes to New Jersey, he goes to all these areas. Excuse me, Larry. What he's sending is a message to the American people that he's appealing to all. He's addressing their concerns not just based on ethnicity or demand that the brothers vote the way Barack Obama tells you to vote. Donald Trump and the MAGA movement are looking at all Americans and hoping for their success and working for it.
Wow, I agree. Joe, he may even, not only the messaging, as David just said, but, I mean, he could. I don't know. No one knows. But I look at these polls. Polls aren't votes, but they are snapshots of where voters are. The momentum is for Trump. He's nationwide, a bunch of polls. He's +1 or +2, and he's doing very well in this so-called 7 swing states. But I just think they've got an opportunity to open this up. I mean, it's like in baseball, it's like the Yankees with a 7 or 8 run 6th inning or a 7 or 8 run 8th inning that people never expected, but they blow up the game. I mean, something like that could conceivably happen, Joe.
I think the Trump people know something that we don't in terms of what they're saying, because why else would you go to Colorado like he did yesterday, right? And then you're going to New York, Madison Square Garden, the Mecca. That would be like Kamala Harris going to Tuscaloosa and speaking during halftime of the University of Alabama game. She would never do it in a billion years. Get booed off the stage, and Trump's going to get 20,000 at MSG. So I think you're right. I mean, we talked about this. I think New Jersey's in play. I think Virginia's in play. And the reason why I believe that, Larry, is because Donald Trump, he's winning with the unions, the rank and files. That's Democrat votes. He's doing so well with blacks, like we just talked about in terms of that vote. Hispanic votes, he's at all-time highs. So he's taking all these constituencies that normally belonged to Democrats and even to Joe Biden to a much more extent than Kamala Harris. And I want to know where the votes come from if you are Kamala Harris now at this point, besides single white women, because I think if you look at the polls from 2016, 2020, you got to add 4 to whatever Trump's getting now. And if he's already winning, that tells me that we could be looking at a landslide. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does, I'm not going to be surprised.
David Webb, just thinking, Kamala Harris, everybody yelled at her because she wouldn't give one-on-one interviews. She still hasn't done a press conference, but put that aside. Everyone said, start doing one-on-one interviews. So she's doing one-on-one interviews. And now everyone's saying, don't do one-on-one interviews. You can't get it out. She's no good. I mean, no matter what she does, she's being unveiled is what I'm thinking, David. The more you see, you take the veil off, oh, my gosh, what's there? A word salad. That's what the networks, major networks, have to then edit for her. I mean, this, I think, shows her campaign may well be crumbling.
I've been plagiarizing Joe Concha for a good solid week or so right now on my radio show. True. T-ball with a beach ball.
Yeah.
And I give credit to you, Joe, every time I do that, or just about every time, because unlike Joe Biden, I don't believe in plagiarizing. But Kamala Harris is actually, they're creating a veil while unveiling her. Yeah. She still hasn't done an interview, and I'll tell you why. When you do an interview, the interviewee, the three of us have done many of these, either being on one side or the other. You have follow-up questions. You're trying to pierce the answer to look for more for the person watching or listening. So she really doesn't do an interview when the vapid and the vacuous Kamala sits down with the vapid and the vacuous Howard Stern, someone who has gone from being one of the best interviewers in the world to the cover-up for Joe Biden and now the cover-up for Kamala Harris. And when she sips the tip of the foam of a beer on Stephen Colbert, a good swig of a beer, come on. It's the pretense and strategy. Trump and Vance are widening to the American people. Democrats are narrowing into segments of people and saying, I need to keep you where you need to be. And that's how they want to win the election.
That's a great point. Joe, I'm going to give you the last word. Democrats are narrowing. Republicans are broadening. I think David Webb captures a lot there.
And it's all happening at the right time if you're Donald Trump and J.D. Vance with just, 24 days to go now? And I think when we look back at a turning point, guys, I know you got to go, it's going to be that vice presidential debate.
Yes.
I really think that it's closed walls. Yeah. People are like, JD's not weird. He's kind of likable and smart.
Yes. And Trump picked him, and that was smart. I thought at the time, we talked about this with Simone, I think, on the TV show, Joe. But I thought at the time that even though it never happens, this vice presidential debate actually moved the needle. It really did. It's the darndest thing.
I agree.
All right, fellas. Very good. You're both fabulous. I can't thank you enough. Joe Concha and David Webb, two of the best of the best.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.